really good productive meetings last night with our team and closed a chapter on that BC game, and our immediate attention goes to a really talented Florida State football team that's obviously been tested with Alabama, Virginia, and of course Miami this past weekend, so they're really good. But just hitting on the BC game, which I don't feel any different than I felt after the game. It was a complete game by our football team, kind of what you've been expecting and wanting. I think we executed at a high rate, and that's probably why the score looked like it did. I think when you execute and you don't turn the ball over, good things happen. And our offense had a chance to get almost 90 plays, and our defense is on the field for 60 plays, and that's kind of how you'd like it to be. I talked about the yards per carry, yards per pass last week, and said we didn't have enough plays. Well, when you have more plays and you move the sticks like we did, and again, our goal was to make an impact and play a complete game, and that's what our guys did. So, but again, going right on to Florida State, Mike Norvell, heck of a football coach, has had success wherever he's been. In the offseason, made two, coordinator changes and obviously some other staff changes, and I think it's made a difference. He's got, Guru Gus Malzahn, who we all know is really talented, former head football coach in several places, does a nice job. They're the #2 rushing offense in the country, so they're talented. They got running backs and skill everywhere, and then defensively, Tony White, old Syracuse coordinator back in I think 2021, 22, does a nice job. Has moved around, and he's done a nice job on defense. Again, starts up front with those guys. I mean, their front four are fantastic. You can call them the Fantastic Four. They put pressure on the quarterback. We got to be really good up front this weekend. And again, they got skill all over the field. Again, they're exceptionally athletic. Questions?
What have you, just watching film of Castellano since he's been in Florida State, what have you seen about, is there anything that stands out to you that's about his game that has changed since he faced him in 23 in Boston College?
I think, maybe surrounded with a lot better players than he was back at Boston College. I think, the talent surrounding him, the weapons, he's got a receiver, he's got a 6'6" wideout that, he's going to, call it run it routes. He's going to, run a comeback. He's going to get thrown back shoulder fades at 6'6". We don't have any 6'5" corners. He's really talented. He's got, great eye-hand coordination. Makes tough contested catches. So he's got talent around him. His athletic ability hasn't changed. He was athletic and scrambled all over the place in the past. He's doing the same thing. He can make plays with his feet. They like to run quarterback draws with him, so we got to be really ready for all the quarterback draws that we'll see, and obviously trying to stop the slew of running backs they have in that backfield that are big and athletic.
And what have you seen out of Mason that tells you he'll be ready for that environment, be able to handle the environment you guys are walking into?
Yeah, Jeff, we'll find out this weekend, right? We're going to find out. First time starting last week in the college atmosphere, and now it's going to be an angry, enthusiastic crowd down there in Tallahassee. So we'll find out. But kind of like Trey Budkowski, is another freshman that's playing for us. I mean, I think he's kind of like this. But it's not going to be how he handles it. It's going to be how we handle it. It's going to be getting the snap cadence. We had 0 unforced errors on offense as far as penalties. I think we had 4 holding calls, but aggressive penalties. But so that'll be the challenge. We got to do a great job as a staff. This week of just making sure that we are on top of our game there, and we execute at a high level that way.
You can see his athletic ability, like on his high school tape. He can run and he can throw and all that. You talked after the game about his preparation. I mean, what are those other things beyond the athletic ability that set him apart, allowed him to have success, and should help him when he goes into a tough environment?
Well, I mean, obviously intelligence and preparation are probably one of the key ingredients. You can be a lesser talented player. We got a lot of talent in that quarterback room, but just the preparation is really good. But he's got a quick release, and he knows where to go with the ball. He's got a good pre-snap idea of what's going on. So that intelligence there helps. Eli's in a good place. Eli, I mean, nobody's happy, but including myself. I mean, it's something you don't want to ever have to do, but it's part of the game of football, right? It doesn't matter if you're a corner, or safety, a linebacker, or quarterback, or running back. I mean, there's adversity that hits. I think he's dealt with adversity well, and and he continues. He'll have to continue to do. We're going to need him. So.
Why was it important to you to get him in the fourth quarter?
Why was it important?
Mm-hmm.
Well, based on the score, I want to get his confidence back where it was, and just get him going. So it was real important to get him in. And, you never thought you would get in going into an ACC contest like we did, but we were fortunate to be able to get him in there and get him some snaps because there's still a lot of trust and faith in Eli Holstein. I guarantee you that.
From the offensive line to Joel's and Jakarian, just what do you feel like went differently against Boston College to allow you to find some momentum on the ground for the first time?
Yeah, I think anytime you throw the ball effectively, it's going to open up your run game. We talked about taking what they're going to give you. When you're throwing completions, and they got to worry about defending both. And again, I talk about all the time here being two-dimensional, right? We ended up being two-dimensional on offense. And anytime you can be two-dimensional and you're not, you're not getting the box packed because they don't think you can, hit an open receiver or complete it. I think that's what it comes down to.
After watching the film, how did Ryan do in his first start, and how did that whole offensive line play?
Ryan Credit, left guard. Yeah, Ryan did well. I mean, again, everybody played pretty well when you beat a team like that. And again, that was a really good Boston College team, guys. I mean, the score didn't look like it. And you're like, oh, we beat, but it was because of execution and the ball. And when you don't turn it over, like I said, I think that's a really good football team. It's going to win some games this year, and they're talented. And it was one of those days where we really executed. And we need to bottle everything that we did last week and bring it down to Tallahassee.
You guys have made an emphasis on depth. Depth was a little bit challenged on offensive line and defensive end due to injuries. What were your impressions on how those guys that had to step up did?
They played good enough to win. I mean, they played good enough to win up front, and it's the next man up, whatever it is, whenever it is. Our guys came in, and Gio Cooley got some snaps at right tackle as well, so it was good to see an Erie PA guy get in there, and he's only going to get better with more snaps if we can afford to give them to him.
When you have a start like that for Mason, especially a first career start, maybe you get a little too high on yourself, but how has he sort of stayed level-headed this week so far?
Well, this week so far, it is Monday morning at noon. I think all the quarterbacks are in meeting, watching tape now, so they're all in there. So I haven't, it's not like I pull them in and say, hey, how you doing? Like, how are you high? Are you low? But like I try to teach our whole team, hey, you can't ever get too high, can't get too low. You just got to kind of stay in the middle, and I think that's where Mason will be, regardless of what I say to him or what he feels like today.
Was it important to make the move to quarterback at this point in the schedule as opposed to later, especially with the last 3 games you have on the schedule this season?
You know what? I'm not worried about when. I'm not worried about the last 3 games. I couldn't even tell you. I know we played Miami at the end. I couldn't tell you who we played game 10 or 11. I know we finished with Miami. I knew we started up with Duquesne and Miami. I don't know why I remember that, but I know we got Miami. I'm not worried about what game it is. It's important for our football team to just give us the best chance to win, and who can go out there and execute and help us win.
This was your first Power 4 win in a while. Does it feel like the time got on your back?
Not really. I mean, we were close to getting a few last year at the end of the year, and we didn't finish for whatever reason. And there's multiple reasons, but I didn't see any monkey on my back. I didn't look to see if he was there or not, but I just got him off a long time ago if I could.
You used Isaiah Neal at defensive end on Saturday. What went into that move? How did he do? And could that be a long-term switch for him?
Yeah, it could be a long-term. Ghost is a guy. Isaiah Neal, Ghost nickname, AKA. Ghost is a guy that plays with a great motor. He's very detailed. He's smart. That's why he's a personal protector on our punt team. He can execute everything we need him to execute. He's kind of a tweener between a defensive end and D tackle. Especially this week with the mammoth guys that we're going to play up front. I mean, from 6'7", 330 pounds. I mean, across the board they're huge. And but he's tough enough to play inside, and he's athletic enough to play on the edge. So he's one of those guys that can play both.
Do you think that was the best game from your defense this season? At least going back on tape, would you say that?
You could say that. You could say that. I mean, again, it comes down to execution. And I think the main thing was time possession. When you only got 60 plays or 65 plays, whatever it is, that's a normal game. When you're playing in the 90s, there's going to be a lack of execution. There's going to be exhaustion, that comes in whether you go overtime or you don't go overtime. So again, like complementary, football offense, staying on the field, execute, moving the sticks, which is critical, and giving our defense a break. Then you're gonna have more energy for 60 plays. If you need to tap out in 60 plays, and we got conditioning problems, which we don't.
Anything else?
Cade has said in the past that he wants to lead the nation in first downs. I think you guys had 31 first downs. It might be the most in a game since he's been here. Was that kind of, they used the tempo, but they still ran a lot of plays, picking up those small chunks, just kind of moving the ball down the field. Is that sort of the offense you wanted him to bring here? Something that would just chip away and get down the field?
No question about it. I mean, again, moving those sticks and moving the chains. I think our longest drive for points a week ago was 2 minutes and 31 seconds. I mean, you look the other day, we had probably 4 or 5 drives that were 4.5, 5.5 minutes long. And again, the offense is just moving on the field. And I always say it's a lot easier to play offense than it is defense because you dictate. Defensively, you're reactors. You have to react to what everybody's doing. So being able to execute and get the ball and move those sticks is critical. I don't care if it's explosives. We'd like to have more explosives. I think when you look at it, Boston College had 2 explosives on the day. Again, 2. Our goal is to limit them to 5. So we're way under that number. And offensively, we had what we considered 14 explosives. So there were still explosives, but we kept those chains moving. Made the chain crew work today instead of just lining them up and leaving them there and then punt the ball.
How much of what Mason did on Saturday, I guess, came as a surprise? I'm sure you knew a lot about him, but until you actually throw him into game action.
Yeah, I mean, there's no surprises in practice because you saw what you saw. You see what you've seen since August, since spring ball, since bowl practice up in Michigan. So we knew that we had something good with him. But until you see how a guy reacts on game day, I can't tell you he had the greatest scrimmages ever in August. When we went to the stadium twice, but he also wasn't playing with the one offense either. So being able to play with the ones and making sure the receivers are where they need to be, those are all factors that we had to obviously factor in.
Yeah, just a decision of that magnitude at the most important position on the field. Just how did you go about arriving at that decision? And I guess specifically, to what extent did you seek out Cade and just try to gather input from him or whoever else?
Well, we talk every day. We talk depth chart every single day as a staff. It's not just me and Cade, but but obviously, Cade and I, had some conversations and we'll keep those personal. But there's a lot that goes into a decision like that. That's not anything. That's hard. That's a hard decision to make when you look at Eli's. As a 7-1 starter a year ago. I think he's 7-0 as a starter that finishes the game, right? I think his one loss was Louisville when he didn't. He had 2 drives. So there's a ton of talent there. There's a ton of faith in Eli, and but sometimes you get in a rut, and that's what we did.
You had 6 different touchdowns, 6 touchdowns against BC, 6 different scores. I mean, how important is that with the offense, just having anyone that can go out and get a touchdown whenever you need it?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not like we're looking for one guy. I mean, I think Poppy was the leading receiver coming into that game, probably. Probably scored a touchdown. He was making plays, and all of a sudden, Kenny Johnson gets into factor. I know you guys asked that question probably last week. Kenny had an outstanding game, as you can see right there. I mean, he's playing at a high level. You guys like these new pictures we got? That's a heck of a caused fumble. We worked really hard on that. It was good to see one come out on Saturday, but you throw it to the guys that are open. You throw it to the guy you're supposed to. It's not like pre-snap you're going, I want to throw it to that. You can't predetermine where you want to throw the ball. It can't happen.
I think when we've asked you about Blue Hicks in the past, you talked about you need to get him the ball in space more and let him make plays. But it seems like he's caught some passes downfield. I mean, the one came back on a holding call the other day, but that was a pretty impressive catch in the corner.
He has a nice head stand too. Better not have any of that anymore either.
But has he, I don't want to say surprised you, but impressed with what he's been able to do as far as getting downfield and making catches, not just the short stuff? Yeah,
there's no question. I mean, you can't play receiver if that's all we're going to do is throw you the ball to the line of scrimmage and see if you can make a play with your feet and put him at running back if that's the case. No, it doesn't shock me at all. Blue is an excellent receiver. I wouldn't brag about him in August camp if I didn't think that guy can make plays down the field as well as if and when he gets that ball in his hands and has some space that he can make something happen, whether it's behind the line of scrimmage or 10 yards down the field. He can make plays. We have yet to see that, I think, a whole lot. But he's made some acrobatic, catches down the field, which, is huge. I mean, you have to be to be a complete receiver, you got to be able to do both. And he's one of those guys that I think can make plays with his feet after he catches it. but he certainly obviously can catch the ball down the field and make plays down the field.
Florida State obviously had that big win in week 1 against Alabama, and then 2 straight losses now. I guess what's different about that team that beat Alabama versus the one that's lost?
You know, I don't know if we put any tape of Miami, Florida. The Hurricanes, they're pretty good. That was a battle down there in Florida last week, and what they call battle for the state championship, I guess, of the Florida teams. So, I mean, they've been tested. They've played some good football. That's a really, really, really good football team, guys. And we're gonna have to play our best to go down there and get a win on Saturday. That's for sure. They're really good. They're talented everywhere, and they got great coaches. So we're gonna have to go down and play.
Couple more. All good?
Anybody else?